Our speaker today is Adam Lewinberg. He's the president and CEO of Postal Advocate, the only mail audit and recovery firm in the US and Canada. We manage a portfolio of 201,000 pieces of mailing equipment for the largest US companies. Adam speaks and teaches nationally on mail savings and industry trends. He is a former industry co-chair of the Boston Postal Customer Council and Mailing Systems Management Association. He is CMDSS and MDC certified. He is a featured writer for Mailing Systems Technology magazine. Adam worked for one of the largest mailing vendors for over 17 years. He was the director of national sales for Presort, tabletop inserters, addressing hardware and software and green offerings. And he was one of the top 5 account managers nationally, working with some of the nation's largest accounts. Over to you, Adam.
Kayla, everybody's favorite topic, USPS rate increases. And we're also going to cover a bunch of details on what's going on with the USPS mandatory meter migration. So what we're going to cover today are the details of this proposed increase and how it impacts you, how to budget for the increase, the details of the forced meter migration, the devices impacted and timelines, how to create visibility to your fleet of equipment, what mail equipment options are available, enterprise online postage options, and where these systems make sense. This is a huge growth area. What are some rate sizing strategies that can reduce costs by up to 80%? Planning and implementing these changes, and then ongoing visibility and future phases. So first off, it's very important to note the new rates go into effect Sunday, January 21st, 2024. Post office always makes these rate changes happen on a Sunday, so to make sure that everybody has their rates downloaded when you start work on Monday morning, everything is in effect. We're going to focus on the most common rate categories. There are lots of rate categories that the post office uses, but we're focusing on the ones that are used by the majority of organizations in the United States. And if you need any other information of things that we're not covering, you can go to the USPS Postal Explorer price change, and that will give you more details on it. So we have had 23 to 56% increases in the last 29 months, some of the largest increases in the history of the Postal Service. And they're happening every 6 months, basically, as you can kind of see here. We're in this particular rate increase, it's one of the lower rate increases that we've seen in a while, where rates are in anywhere from between the 1% to 4% range. But when you combine those with the rate increases that we've had in a very short period of time, we have not seen these types of rate increases, in my estimates, in the history of the Postal Service. If you look at the previous 10 years to what we had, we've not gotten anywhere close to what we've seen in the last 29 months. And the reasons for this are the following. Mail volumes are dropping. The post office knows the only way that they can make up for this is through rate increases. But at the same time, they have an increased number of drop-off points with fewer mail per drop-off. So they have more buildings they have to service, more residents they have to service. And we also find is during a correction, like we had COVID-19, there was a recession in 2007, infrequently do the volumes ever go back up after the recession. So they're fighting the fact that volumes went down with COVID and they really didn't come back up. So what's going on? First-class mail, single piece. We're getting a 3% increase overall on 1 ounce letters. The 1 ounce letter is going from 66 to 68 cents. We're getting on the 1 ounce flat, we're increasing from $1.35 to $1.39. And postcards are going up 3.9% from 51 to 53 cents. It's important to note the additional ounce rate for every additional ounce beyond the first ounce is staying the same at 24 cents. And what that means is as items get heavier, the impact is lower because those additional ounce prices didn't change. Most of the people on this call are going to have some sort of technology to be able to mail things. We're not mailing it at the retail rate. They're using the metered rate. And that metered rate is going from 63 cents to 64 cents, about a 1.6% increase. Interesting to note that metered mail saves 4 cents per piece over going to the post office. It's 64 cents versus 68 cents, which overall is about a 6% increase. When you look at your different mail volumes, if you're spending $10,000 a year in first-class postage, this is a $600 savings a year. If you're spending $100,000, this is a $6,000 savings. So it can add up as your mail volumes get higher. First class commercial. If you're using a pre-sort service, if you're outsourcing your mailings to third-party outsource providers, if you're running it through automation software in your office, you're qualifying for first class mail commercial rates. Those rates are going up about 2% for automation letters. Flats are going up 1 to 2%. Postcards are increasing by about 1%. And full service IMB customers still save an additional 0.003 cents if they're submitting it through IMB standards. Some saving strategies. Throughout this entire presentation, we're going to go over ideas to save money. One of the biggest things is to look at the flats that you're sending and consider folding those either into number 10 envelopes or 6 by 9.5 envelopes. The savings are anywhere between 50 to 70%. You can typically get up to 12 sheets of mail paper into a 6 by 9.5 envelope. If you use a pre-sort service, the rates are up to 3.5 ounces. So the post office over the last like 5 to 8 years has been increasing the weights that we can mail something through first class pre-sort. So if it's a 1 ounce first class pre-sort piece, it's sort of like the lowest level of sort, it's 57.1 cents. If you are doing 2 ounces or 3 ounces or 3.5 ounces, that rate is the same across the board. It doesn't go up. They're allowing you to mail up to 3.5 ounces at that 1 ounce rate. So the savings get significant as you shove more and more pieces of paper into that envelope. But with the fact that, just to backtrack a second, with the flats, first class flats have gone up 38, 39%. Automation flats have gone up 56%. It's very important to look at your flats to say, are we doing any with low page counts that we can convert because the savings are enormous? Other first class savings options, and these are all the gamut of your your options to save money on first class mail. So the first is, if you're doing any volume at all, make sure you have a postage meter or online postage solution to save that 4 cents. Get it down from 68 to 64 cents. If you're doing more than 500 pieces per day or have one-time mailings over 1,000 pieces, consider using a pre-sort service. They'll pick up your mail, they'll commingle it with other customers, they'll deposit it in the postal service, and you can typically save, about 5 to 7 cents, depending on what the final rates that the pre-sort service is charging you. First class automation. If you outsource it, or if you do it in-house with automation software, you can get that piece down to 51 to 57 cents. If it's a generic piece where every piece is basically the same except maybe some Dear Adam or Dear John, or some basic messaging inside of it, you can qualify for marketing mail. If you have over 200 pieces in a job, you can get the rates from 33 to 38 cents. And if you're a nonprofit, they qualify for additional marketing mail discounts where you can get that piece for as low as 17 cents. And so these are the gamut of options. There are huge ways to reduce money and postage. The unfortunate thing is most people just either don't have the expertise in-house or they forgot and they haven't focused on this in a while. But it's important to use this as a refresher of how you can reduce costs. These are all the ways for first class mail. Marketing mail. So we're having a 1% increase for letters. Lightweight flats are increasing 2 to 5%. Heavyweight flats over 4 ounces are increasing 2 to 4% based on weight. And so we got out easy basically on this rate increase from a rate change perspective. But you can see the post office is still putting more emphasis on rate increases on their flat sizes. So the more you can get converted from flats, the better the savings. So the marketing mail savings options you can consider. So the first is use entry-level discounts to move mail closer to its destination for larger savings. What that means is most people are going to outsource their marketing mail. If you're doing it in-house, you should know about these things. If you can transport or have the outsource provider transport the mail to the DNDC or the DSCF, and the DSCF is an example, is the Destination Sectional Center facility. So if you're sending it, if it's a local mailing and you can truck your stuff to the one sectional center facility or multiple sectional center facilities that support where those pieces are going, you save an extra 3.5 cents per piece. The rate increases didn't change on these. The impact didn't change, which is why we're showing it this way. But there's still a 3.5 cent savings you can get. Make sure your outsourcers who are doing marketing mail for you are paying attention to this because the savings is significant. Convert flats to letters wherever possible. Same as with first class. If you're sending like flats up to 4 ounces it's 40 cents to $1.01 if you send it as a flat, where that goes from 17.3 to 38.5 to 3.5 ounces with a letter. So the same thing that holds true with first class, convert those flats into smaller pieces wherever possible. Priority mail. So priority mail is up to 13 ounces to 70 pounds, 1 to 3 day delivery throughout the country. There's 9 primary zones. Um, the rate increases that you should expect is there's 2 classes. Let me back up. There's 2 classes. There's a retail and a commercial base. Retail is anything that you either drop off at the postal service or submit at the postal service, or using postage meter. Postage meters have retail rates in it, or if you use USPS click and ship, those are retail rates as well. Retail rates are going up on your flat rates 4%, on the lightweight items 1 to 10 pounds are going up about 6%. The commercial ones, which are ones you submit through some sort of electronic platform, like an online postage portal that you'd get from Pitney Bowes or Stamps.com or Indicia or Quadient or FP, that you can get a commercial base basically by generating the 4x6 shipping label. And those rates, the flat rates are going up a little bit more at 7%, but the lighter weight items are only going up at 5%, and the really heavy ones are going up a little less at 10%. Priority Mail Express. Similar service to Priority Mail, similar like structures. The difference is it's next day, 1 day guaranteed to most zip codes. There are some zip codes that it does not deliver next day to. It might do 2 day on those, but it's a guaranteed service that you can get refunds for. Across the board, 6% increases. That's what you can expect. There's a service that got added in July 23 called Ground Advantage, and I think this service is very significant. It's 2 to 5 day delivery throughout the U.S. It goes from 4 ounces to 70 pounds in weight, and it's one standard service regardless of weight. So there used to be a service called First Class Package Service, which was for items up to 15.99 ounces, so basically less than a pound. Those rates basically stayed the same. And then they added USPS Parcel Select Ground and Retail Ground services because very few people use those. And they combined it into one new service called Ground Advantage. And this service gives $100 of insurance automatically, can be expanded to $5,000. It has a return service available. It's up to 80% less than Priority Mail, 32% for items 10 pounds or less. Retail customer version, there's a retail and a commercial version. The commercial version saves 26% for items up to 10 pounds. So the rates on this went up slightly from last year to the new. They went up 5% overall for retail and 5 to 6% for commercial base, except for the heavy ones. So savings tips for packages. Move to commercial rates. It's a huge discount over the retail rates. You need to process it through an online postage solution like we talked about, and click and ship, which is the free system from the post office, doesn't qualify. Multiple vendors or options are available to process these packages, but it does require the operator to enter the address and submit the transaction electronically and create that shipping label versus just a meter tape. So what I mean by that is anything that goes over 13 ounces that you run through your mail machine automatically goes to Priority Mail. You either kick a tape or you run it through your mail machine. And that's easy for a lot of people, but that ease has a cost. It's costing you more money to do it that way than if you ran it through one of these software platforms, and you can see the rate difference. So for Priority Mail, it's 13% on the flat rates, but when you do it by weight structure, you're not using their flat rate boxes or envelopes, it's basically 17 to 31% more. Priority Mail Express, 13 to 15% more. Ground Advantage is 16 to 30%, 32% more. So the rates are significantly more doing it with the retail rates than the commercial rate. So here's a calculator that you can see. Overall, Ground Advantage for less than 10-pound items is 26% less. Priority Mail is 30% less, and Priority Mail Express is 14% less. If someone's doing $10,000 of shipments a year, it's $2,500. I mean, it's a big difference when you start looking at it at higher quantities. You can get online postage solutions that start at about $15 a month from the mailing vendors and clearly pays for itself doing very little volume. Other savings tips: compare your packaging versus flat rate envelopes and boxes. So people might say, oh, I just use the free boxes and envelopes from USPS. That's great if things are going farther away from the country. So what these zones represent is distance away from where you are. So where you're sending it, what's the distance away from where you are? And zones 1 and 2 are basically less than 150 miles away. And then it keeps going farther and farther. 3 and 4, might be 600 miles away. And then the 5, 6, 7, and 8, those are, going, midway to cross country. If you're doing a lot of local shipments and using those free boxes and envelope packs, you're spending more money. And you can see the numbers here. Depending on flat rate envelopes will cost you, 3 to 8% more for local zones. But as you go farther away, it saves you a lot more money using them because it's not rated by the distance. It's just a flat rate across the board. Convert priority mail to ground advantage. A lot of people, like we just talked about, anything over 13 ounces, they're just running it through their postage meter and they're just clicking on a meter tape. If you use the ground advantage service, instead of 1 to 3 day delivery, it's 2 to 5 day delivery. But your mail that you're running through your mail machine is 2 to 5 day delivery anyway. So it's no difference than that. So, but you can see the savings, less than 1 pound, 79% savings, because Ground Advantage has an ounce rate. Priority mail starts at 1 pound. Ground Advantage has a 4 ounce, an 8 ounce, a 12 ounce, and a less than 1 pound rate. And that's why the savings are so high in this category. And you can see for the heavier items, there's still decent savings as well. Comparing costs. So most organizations that you deal with throughout the country have one vendor that they use. They'll use UPS or they'll use FedEx. A couple use DHL for international. Most of them will use UPS or FedEx as their prime carrier. And they say we're going to push most things through those carriers and we have great discounts with those carriers and we're going to use the free carrier provided tools like UPS Campus Ship or FedEx.com. And those are great, but there are times they're not. And I'm going to tell you the things that you want to look out for. What you want to look out for is let's compare something that's going in zones 4 halfway across the country. It's not a local shipment, it's not going coast to coast, it's halfway. It's just an average package. And we're shipping that item out, overnight we're paying $45, 2-day 25, 3-day 18, ground 11. And we get discounts on top of these, right? And we have negotiated service discounts from the carriers that could be as high as 70 or 80%. So you're saying with those discounts, my rates are much better, except the vendors, the UPS and FedEx have minimum package thresholds, which no matter what your discount is, they're not like your minimum charge, and it's going to be different by customer, is going to be somewhere between $6 and $10, and it's not going to be able to go below that based on like these minimum charges. Then UPS and FedEx charge fuel surcharges, which are about 14%. So that's going to add a couple dollars to your package. If it's going to a residence, they're charging $5 on top of that. And if it's to a rural zip code, which is 61% of all zip codes in the country, it's an extra $3.70 to $7.15. And heaven forbid there's an address correction, that's an extra 21. So the point is the post office is, $8 for that shipment. If you use Ground Advantage, it could be as low as like $4 to $6. And they don't charge for fuel and residential fees and delivery area surcharges. So in many cases, it can be half as much money when you start adding those fees. So as a rule of thumb, lightweight items going to residents, the post office is typically going to be less expensive. And heavier items, typically where your full discounts kick in, UPS and FedEx are going to be better rates. The point is these calculations are difficult for people to make. We recommend that people have rate shopping platforms that can show the rates side by side of UPS, FedEx, and the Postal Service, or just if you use just UPS and the Postal Service, so that those comparisons can be made, because people aren't going to spend the time going from one system and checking a rate and then going to another system and checking a rate. You need the things side by side in a calendar view that shows these things, and then being able to generate the postage. This is a huge trend in the technology that's available. We're going to go through more of this as we go through this meeting. The other things about it is these same platforms can generate postage stamps, at least some of these platforms can. So in one solution, You can generate your parcels and your postage stamps, and that can be distributed across your enterprise. Additional rate change items. So there are lots of international mail classes. We're going to focus on the most common, which are your 1, 2 ounce and postcards. Your rates are basically going up about 3% for most of it. Not a huge significant increase, but we wanted to point it out. Library mail, you're going, depending on the weight, you're getting about a 1 to 5% increase. Media mail is having similar increases. Special services. There are lots of special services. These are some of the most common. That's why we focus on them. Certificate of mailing is going up about 2.6%. Most common special service is certified with return receipt. The certified rates are only going up 1%, which is great. The return receipts, the green cards are going up about 3%. And if you submit electronically, those are going up about 10%. If you have an annual permit, the permit fees are going from $310 to $320. And then if you use business reply, you can see that some of the rate structures increase. So saving strategies, certified. Switch to the electronic return receipt process. It saves $1.33, and there are a lot of benefits to it. Instead of having to get the green cards back on your certifieds for the retail version, you can basically submit these transactions electronically. You can either be printing, or you can get rolls of these certified barcodes that can go onto it. You can print cover sheets that can go through a window. And when you submit to the electronic version, instead of getting the green card back in the mail, you have access to platforms that will allow you to print the certified return receipt, basically a PDF of it, as opposed to the green card. What's great about this technology is you can have a listing of every certified that you've sent to see, have we gotten the signature confirmation or not? It's very difficult for many companies to manage these green cards. And so not only does this save $1.33, it gives you a more organized and manageable process of managing your certifieds. Business reply mail. This is one of the special services. This is one of the most overlooked pieces of mail, and people don't realize that they can overspend by tens of thousands of dollars. So the way business reply mail works is you get charged for the pieces that get physically returned. And you only get charged for the pieces that get returned. So the fee to get a piece back is anywhere between $1.07 or 2 cents, depending on what type of service you sign up for. And then the postage rates for those pieces on top of the fee piece would be anywhere between 68 cents, which is the 1 ounce postage rate, or there's some slightly discounted rates if you do QBRM at 65.9. So what makes the difference of these rates is what type of account you set up for. If you just want to pay the $320 annual permit fee, then you're paying $1.07 to get the piece back. If you just pay $930 for a high volume fee, that fee goes from $1.07 to 13 cents. So what we find in a lot of companies is they set up their business reply accounts and then they forget about it. They put it on an autopilot and they're constantly paying whatever the fee is that they originally set it up with, which most of the time is the basic fee. And if you're doing less than 1,000 pieces a year in returns, it's good to have the basic account. You spend about $2,000 a year. Well, what if you get 100,000 returns a year? You're spending $175,000 a year versus if you were just paid the $900 fee, it would have only been $82,000. So this makes a big difference, and it requires people to know where their business reply accounts are and to have someone who's going in and monitoring the volume on those to make sure that you're set up in the right type of account structure, because the amounts that you could overpay can be very large. And at the same time, if you're doing really low volumes, but people are automatically paying these postal fees, they're spending money on things they don't need to spend. So how do you budget for this increase? Here's a chart. You can email Michaela if you're interested, or it's on our website at postaladvocate.com, where you can plug in your mail spends in these yellow fields, and it will calculate the impact to you. What do you need to budget for this increase based on your specific mail volumes? What do you need to do? Before January 21st, 24, you need to make sure that you've either downloaded the meter updates, and you want to make sure you have those rates downloaded if it asks, or that you've done a connection to the data center of your meter vendor. If you have newer equipment, the newer equipment should be constantly connected so it won't be an issue. If you have questions, these are links to the main mailing vendors in the industry, and it will give you where you can go and find more information about rate change. If you need more information about any classes we didn't cover, you can go to the Postal Explorer website with the link here. Now we're going to switch gears to something that's incredibly significant. It's called this USPS forced meter migration. So the post office is decertifying all information-based indicia IBI compliant meters by June 30th, 2024. New meters must be intelligent mail indicia IMI compliant or will no longer be approved for use. So let's just break that down in English. A lot of the older style meters, you hit refill, it connects to the data center, you load your $1,000 into it, $1,000 goes into your meter, and then it disconnects. Post office is saying we can't have that anymore. We need the ability to constantly monitor the meters that are on our network. We want to be able to have a higher level of security. We want to be able to issue refunds right from the meter device. And we want to be able to be on a higher standard than what those older devices need. So we estimate 40 to 70% of the postage meters in the United States do not meet this compliance and are going to have to be replaced in a very short time frame, 6 months. So the value to the USPS is it automates their operation, higher security, validate correct postage amounts, they can issue refunds, and they'll have more control of what's entering their network. The value to the client, frankly, isn't that much. I mean, it's just something that you have to comply with. The most important thing is we can't add a chip to an existing machine. It has to be replaced. And the entire mailing system has to be replaced. And for some people, that's going to be increased costs. These are the items that we know about that are impacted. Pitney Bowes, the good news is that this is mostly impacting the low to medium segment of the market. If you're in a really high volume mailroom and you have production equipment, chances are this isn't impacting you yet, and you'll have until 12/31/27 to make those changes. What's really being impacted now is the smaller, medium-sized machines from Pitney Bowes and Quadient and from FP. We don't have a list of the FP models, so if you do have FP for mailing equipment, you should reach out to them to see if your machine's compliant. But this is the models that are impacted. The significance about this is I've been in this industry now for 30 years, which is a scary thing to say. And in that time, we've had lots of meter migrations. You used to be able to fill your meter at the post office, then you could fill it, then you had to fill it over the phone, and then you had to fill it over a network connection, and then you had to be able to have a barcode on your meter imprint. There have been multiple of these meter migrations over the years, but there has never been a meter migration that's impacted such a large percentage of the meters that are out there with such a short time horizon in which to change them. And that's what's so significant about this. So the challenges clients are going to have with this is the biggest is network connectivity. These meters have to be constantly connected. A lot of clients don't want that, especially people in healthcare, financial services. They don't want more devices on their network. So that's one issue that you have to attend to. The meter vendors can provide mobile connectors. They're an added cost on top of the meter cost, but it acts like basically like a mobile phone. So you can make connection and with bypassing needing to go into your network. Cost. When you're replacing the units with like for like equipment, it's going to be more expensive, most likely, than the equipment that you have. Creating visibility to what equipment you have. We work with lots of organizations that have lots of locations throughout the country, most of which before we started working had no idea where all their equipment was throughout the country. The mailing industry is not known to provide detailed reporting to the clients. It's something that we have to bring forward to our clients typically in order to get. Collecting the requirements for what is needed for the new equipment, bidding the cost between vendors and models, implementing the new units, returning old equipment, and then making sure the postage is refunded off old units. There's 6 months to go, and we estimate there's 350,000 machines throughout the United States that have to be updated. So creating visibility. So we spend a lot of our time for our clients building visibility to their mailing equipment. We're going to tell you exactly what we do. You can do it yourself. If you need help for any client that has more than 20 locations out there, we'll build you an analysis and an inventory of all of your equipment at no cost and at no obligation. But these are the steps that we do. You can do this yourself. Obtain account numbers for the equipment and leases. For the equipment models, to see if they match the list above, you need serial numbers to gain access to the vendor's web portal. So in order to get access, and the vendors all have web portals, they're all really good, but in order to get access to your equipment on that web portal, you need to have an account number and a serial number from one of your equipment. You need to know contract expiration dates. Some of the vendors will provide the contract expiration dates on their websites, some don't. Also, if you have evergreen agreements, which are basically agreements that if you don't renew by a specific time frame, they auto-renew for 12 months. Mail volumes. On the websites, you can get the details of the mail volumes, and that's one of the most important things. If you have a big piece of equipment, but your locations are only doing $100 a month in postage, and you're spending $500 on equipment, you need to know how much volume it is so you can properly right-size that equipment for the future. What features you need. In new solutions, what is needed for weighing, sealing, accounting, feeding, special services. So our methodology is see if you have any reports or agreements provided by your mailing vendor. Most people don't. If not, or even with, go to accounts payable and have them do a search on the main vendor names. There's only about 5 or 6 main vendor names: Pitney Bowes, Quadient, FP, Stamps.com, Hassler, which is part of Quadient now. Request copies of invoice from that accounts payable list, request specific copies of invoices, and with that, it will have more information. Like on the invoice, it should have potentially an account number. It may have a serial number that can be used to log the information onto the vendor's website. Create a login profile on the vendor's website, and then from that, link all the locations you can find, and then pull data on the postage usage, contract expiration dates, and equipment details. And then any data that you can't find, call the meter vendors, and they'll provide the visibility that you need. So why is this important? There's basically about 6 different levels of mailing equipment that you can choose from. And I'm going to start from the high to the low on purpose. So you have high volume machines, and high volume machines are machines that have automatically can run mail through them. You could stack a pile of mail and they could shoot it through, and they have internal weighing systems on them. And they can weigh the mail as it goes through the system, so you don't have to stop and put each piece on the scale. Those cost $700 to $1,300 a month. There are mid-volume versions of those same types of machines, and those costs go from $350 to $600. There's entry-level automatic feed machines, which are $170 to $300. There's standalone meters where you feed them one at a time, and those cost $25 to $100. There's online postage that you can generate postage through the web, and that's $10 to $30 a month. And then there's enterprise online postage costs, which depending on the number of locations you're allocating can be as little as $1 to $10 a month for those types of solutions. There's a huge gap in what people pay for this type of equipment. And it's really important to understand these distinctions so you're buying what you need. Right-sizing opportunities. So we average for our clients about 56% savings on right-sizing. When we move people to online postage platforms, we typically save in the 70 to 80% range. But the things that you can do when you're right-sizing mail equipment, these are the things to know about. Does the internal weighing system and automatic feeding systems justify their costs based on your volumes? Internal weighing systems cost $200 to $300 a month. Automatic feeding is $100 to $200 a month. And these are over the cost of bare-bone machines that don't have this. Do you need a high weight capacity scale on the mail machine? Standard scales that come with every mailing system should be about 5 pounds. Higher capacity scales, you're adding anywhere between $30 to $100 a month on a lease for the cost of those. You can buy a 150-pound scale from your office supply store for a little over $100 one time. And most people already have higher capacity scales for UPS and FedEx that are on site. So just pay attention before you go get high capacity scales on your mail machine. You need all the features being utilized: accounting systems, weighing systems, conveyor stackers, special services. Can online postage be an option versus low volume meters? 20% savings in postage for parcels and can be expanded to UPS and FedEx processing. And if you have more than 10 locations, you should think about enterprise online postage options. It's the fastest growth segment of this industry. Online postage, real quick about it. Most people, from any computer, you can log into a website and you can print postage, and you can print directly onto postage sheets. You can print directly onto the envelope, or you could have dedicated thermal printers to print postage. Most people don't have the dedicated printers because you lose the flexibility of having the online service, because that printer typically only works on one computer. If you want to print shipping labels, you can print 4x6 shipping labels either onto white paper, or you could get Avery label stock or any shipping label stock that you want to put in your printer. It's inexpensive compared to postage meters. It's cloud-based, can be accessed from anywhere. You can deploy it in 7 to 10 days typically. You have visibility to every package that you've ever and letter you've ever sent. With postage meters, you know someone filled for $500, and that's typically all you really know. With this, every single person who ran a piece of mail to every department, to any location, you have visibility to. Cuts down on theft. Some systems have multi-carrier options, UPS, FedEx, DHL, and look at the postage savings that these platforms have. So in the letters, they're the same rate whether you run a letter through a postage meter or online postage. But if you're doing certified with electronic return receipt, if you're doing any of the parcels, you can see the savings discounts are significant, and some of the vendors have discounts on top of the commercial rates we use. They have special negotiated service agreements inside them that increase the rates even more. Now, this is a weird concept, but you have to think about this is what's actually happening in America. So there are 700,000 postage meters in the United States. There's about 800,000 online postage accounts. So that's about 1.5 million business or office locations have some form of mail technology. There's 25 million offices in the United States, 25 million business locations. So you think about that, the majority of locations inside most organizations have no mail technology. And they have to make a decision. How is mail going to be processed at that location? Are they going to buy a postage meter at $30 to $1,300 a month? Are they going to use an online postage account for $10 to $30 a month? Are they going to send the end user to the post office, in which case they're paying a premium on the postage, 5 to 40% premiums. They will not have the exact denominations. And then you got to send someone to the post office, which is a cost and a liability. Or like banks and hospitals, what they do is they courier mail between locations, either their own couriers, sometimes third-party couriers, or sometimes they FedEx and UPS it to hub locations so they can meter that piece because that's where they have technology. And that's at a huge cost. No defined process across an organization. Location determine how mail gets processed based on if they have any technology. And there's almost no visibility across an enterprise to how mail gets spent. Now, that's how mail is processed in the United States today in large organizations. Now compare that to UPS and FedEx. Most organizations, like I said, would use one of those carriers, either UPS or FedEx. And let's say they use UPS. Typically, UPS has a system called Campus Ship or UPS.com, which is a website that anybody can use, and they're going to distribute that. So any office throughout the entire country, or any user, whether they're working from home or in an office, has access to that. They process their shipments, corporate gets a bill at the end of the month, and they charge back the expenses to that user. So the majority of those locations, whether they're working from home or in offices with no mail technology, it's easier for them to send a UPS at $15 than a 64-cent letter because they have no mail technology and it's a nuisance to get to the post office and to charge back that postage. And that's the wrong model that we want to solve for. So the beauty of this is now there's technology with these enterprise online postage options. This is the fastest segment of growth in the mail industry. And the significance of it is the same experience that we just discussed that UPS offers and FedEx offers, we can now have for the post office, where we can pay one subscription for an enterprise online postage platform, and that can be used at every location throughout an organization. And that cost can be distributed, so the cost per location is significantly less than any of the other technologies that are available today. And you can have single sign-on access, so you can control user rights. You can expand those platforms to UPS, FedEx, and DHL, and they have certified mail capabilities that if you're doing a lot of certified are far superior to any of the mail machines or other options available. If you have more than 10 locations, you should consider these types of systems because they can drastically reduce the cost of sending things at a fraction of the cost. The key to having these types of enterprise postage platforms is you need central administration. We're managing these platforms for our clients and they're seeing huge benefits with it. But if you don't have a central administrator, the systems don't work. And you need someone to define the requirements, implement the system, train the users, onboard users, manage their user access continually, have case management capabilities where your users can log into a portal and report on issues and get direct support from inside your organization. Reporting and chargeback on key metrics, monitoring usage, quantifying savings, and then promoting and expanding the usage of these platforms. Without this, these systems don't work. So back to migration. It's important to plan this migration. You have 6 months to do it. So you need to create an inventory report. You need to document your postage spends. You have to understand the features your locations need, compare the pricing across multiple vendors, order the new solution, validate that the solutions are installed, remove current users from the old systems, validate that postage is recovered, and make sure that all locations across your enterprise have coverage for postal services. So it's important to have this visibility, not just to manage this ongoing. And it's important to have a database of all your mail equipment, contract terms, spends, invoices. Otherwise, this category can't be managed. And the reason it's important is you're going to have ongoing right sizing needs. You're going to have leases and agreements that are expiring at every point in time into the future. You need to validate the invoices. The vendors are far from perfect billers, and they often have errors. If you're not looking at your bills, you're missing it. Postage management, we've recovered $13 million in basically dormant postage for our clients where they've returned meters and no one ever went back and got the money. Location support to make sure the offices have the best mailing options available to them. There's 2 more migrations that are happening in the next 3 years, 2006 and 2026 and 27. And then also to make sure you offset future price increases. You've had humongous price increases and we're going to keep having them. So a little bit about us. This is what we focus on. We manage the mail spends for the largest organizations in America. We manage a fleet of over 200,000 pieces of mailing equipment, and our clients on average have saved about $1.9 million and 56% overall on their equipment side. We manage anything from their postage through meters to outsourced mail spends to permits to their shipping costs. Our clients are across every industry. It doesn't make any difference. It just matters that our clients typically have lots of locations and diverse mail spends. And for any client, we offer to do a no cost or obligation portfolio assessment. And what that means is we'll create an inventory of all of your mail equipment throughout the United States. This will include your contract terms, costs, postage spends, vendor fees. Will provide visibility of what equipment needs to be replaced to meet this meter migration. We'll develop a mail optimization plan for you, which will include right-sizing the mail equipment that you have, which should yield at least a 50% savings, details on the enterprise online postage platforms that we discussed, reduced pricing on mailing equipment for the locations that still have needs, and then process plans that detail how to manage this oversight. So we can typically do these in about 30 days. And the client requirements is very simple. We don't ask a lot from the clients in order for us to do this. They have a letter of authority that we've had approved from the mailing vendors. Provide any mail equipment reports if available, if you have any. Run an accounts payable search to these vendor names that are here on the right. And then we'll come back with some specific invoice copies from that accounts payable search. We'll create a login on the vendor's website on your behalf that you can take over at any time, and then meet with us to review the results. So basically, from your perspective, the bare minimum, you need to sign a letter of authority, run an accounts payable report, and give us a few invoice copies. And then the rest we take care of. I want to thank everybody for being on the call today. I'm going to open it up for questions. Clearly, there's a lot going on between rate increases and meter migration that's happening. And I want to thank everybody for being on this call today. And hopefully this information was helpful.
Thanks, Adam. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to remind you that there are 2 different ways to ask questions. You can either raise your hand, we'll unmute you can ask your question, or you can type your question into the chat box. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and while I wait for people to submit their questions, I want to go ahead and point out the various links listed on this page. Those are all of our various social media links. We post there on a more regular basis, and we have webinars, so if you ever want to get more information from us, that's a good place to go. And then Adam's email is also listed there in case you have any follow-up questions that you think of after the webinar has ended. So our first question is, do you expect another rate increase in 2024?
Yes, the post office has basically came out and said that they're going to have 2 rate increases a year. And I would expect it to be either in July or August of this year.
Okay, we have another question. Do you think the post office will push back the mandate to update the postage meters?
So the post office already came out with like basically all of the quality and equipment from our knowledge was supposed to happen in 2024. And then about 6 months ago, they pushed back the date and they said their higher volume automatic machines had till 2027. So we've already gotten some concessions on this. I don't know if I would expect that we're going to get more with such a short time frame, but one, you never know. It's possible, but I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't wait to see if that happens.
Okay, and our next question, what happens if people do not upgrade their meters by the deadline?
So very good question. So the issue is with migration. So June 30th, 2024, you are out of compliance. So the post office says to be in compliance, you have to update by June 30th, 2024. Post office is giving you an extra 6 months to run out of compliance. So you can have till the end of 2024 to actually use the equipment, but you'll be running it out of compliance. And at the end of 2024, the machine should not be able to be used. And that can be everything from adding postage to your units, making sure that you get rate updates. The postage meters are not supposed to be operational as of the start of 25.
All righty. Well, if there are no further questions, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today, and please fill out the survey that will appear at the conclusion of the webinar, and be sure to check out our social media pages to find more helpful information from us on a more frequent basis, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.